actually be here. Um, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, it's actually best to be.
Okay, sorry, I was just confirming who had actually RSVP'd, but yes, you can go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right. So good morning, everybody. And this was our,
Sorry, Ida, just before you start,
yes.
I just wanted to confirm with the members that are online that I have Sean and Warren with us, the yes interns that are working with SAPMA at the moment. So I'm just going to put my camera on. There is Warren. So
I thought
Warren's
that was
responsible
Komotso.
for Warren's responsible for the forums and assisting us with setting up meetings, and so that's the retail and hardware, HR forum, professional body, import export forum, consultants forum. So that's what Warren's responsibility is. And I'm going to turn my computer. This is Sean, and Sean is helping us with the SAPMA Golf Day and a lot of the behind the scenes on the website and membership database management. So I just wanted to introduce the growing team at SAPMA.
Good, thank you.
And also, excuse me, within the course of the discussion this morning, we'll be talking a bit about Yes as well and explaining to you why, for me, it is one of the best solutions you can have, which satisfies both your triple BE requirements, because it can help you jump to triple BE levels. But importantly, it also then means that when you bring people on board, you're less of a school and more of an opportunity for people to hit the ground running and show what they've actually been taught and what they're capable of doing. I must say I'm very, very excited to have both Warren and Sean on board, because what they've done in a short period of time, I think for SAPMA, really adds a huge amount of value. Okay. So let us begin. Well, good morning, everybody. And this is the SAPMA Retail Forum, Wednesday, 19th of February. On the agenda today, I want to talk about SAPA, which is the South African Retail Paint and Hardware Association. I want to talk about our professional mixologist designation and why it's so critical. I want to talk about the Office for Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman and retailers. We've had some pretty specific information back from the Office of Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman in terms of the 5-year opportunity you now have, so that by 2030, when the Department of Employment and Labor produce their compliance certificates, your record with the Office for Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman becomes quite important. And therefore, your relationship with your suppliers becomes critical. I want to talk, number 4, about responsible marketing campaigns that we want to run for retail. And here we're talking specifically around methanol and lead, and why that's such a huge opportunity for us. It's important, but it's also a huge opportunity. And then I want to talk about our Yes internship pilots. I'm acutely conscious of the fact that you've got very limited time available for this, and I don't want to waste your time. So let's start with this. We've spoken previously about our professional mixologist designation. And just to remind you, the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman that we have an MOU with now has said that they have a problem distinguishing between retailers' responsibilities in terms of guarantee on product and warranty on work done. At this moment in time, if a contractor buys a tin of paint from you, which you've tinted rather than simply on-sold, you become responsible for the quality of that paint. And importantly, you become responsible for the warranty of the contractor unless you have specifically signed that responsibility on the job done over to the contractor. In terms of the Consumer Protection Act, the retailer is ultimately responsible for upstream and onward stream. Upstream is the product you have bought from a manufacturer, and onward stream is who you sold that product to. And ultimately, the consumer will come back to the retailer, and it's for the retailer to sort out the guarantee on the product with the supplier, and for the retailer to sort out the warranty on the job done with the contractor. So that is currently the view of the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. Now, remember, that they are the ombudsman for the Consumer Protection Act. Every single retailer by law has to belong and be registered with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. And I do need to specify every single retail outlet individually, no, not, for example, Nick, not Shave's head office on behalf of all of your stores. So the point of sale is the point of registration. Critically important that you understand this. So if you've got 10 stores, each of those stores has to be registered with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman, and has to be on a register. Now, our MOU says that SAPMA can prepare that register and onward forward it to the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman, and that SAPMA needs to have on our website that register, or rather the companies on the register displayed who are registered with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman, so that members of the public will know that the store they bought the product from is accountable in terms of the Consumer Protection Act. If a company is not registered with the office, then in fact that company is formally unaccountable for the application of the Consumer Protection Act. And so a member of the public would only have recourse with that store, but not with an association such as SAPMA, and at the moment, not with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. Although there are huge fines, which the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman are implementing for retailers who fail to register and should already have registered with the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. Okay, so that's the starting point. So in our discussions and relationship, and by the way, we have a video on the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman that Tara can actually circulate the link for to you, an interview done with the CEO. So in that relationship, the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman have said that we need to know that if there is beneficiation, which is done on a product which is bought from a manufacturer in the retail store, the person working with that product, in other words, the tinter, we call them the mixologist, working with that product, is recognized because they've been trained, but also because they're accountable for participating in lifelong learning. In other words, continuous professional development. And so we're implementing the mixologist designation for that purpose so that we can certify as a store as a proud center of excellence and a member of the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman scheme. The name of that store will appear on our website. And importantly, we will only certify a store where a minimum of 60% of your mixologists have in fact been provided with a professional designation from the coatings professional body under SAPMA. And that's not a training scheme. We're not looking to train your mixologists. We're looking to recognize the fact that they tint, that they are mixologists, that they have received training on the equipment that they're using from the suppliers, and that there is at least an annual refresher activity that's done with them by the suppliers and possibly by other training providers that are accredited that you have in your procurement chain. So we're looking to recognize that. We're not looking to replace it. We're not looking to offer training in replacement for the training you currently offer them. But we're looking to validate everything you've done with those individuals so that they can be on a register of professional mixologists and tinters, and so that your store can be certified as ready, as consumer ready. Critically important. Now, what the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman have said is that you've got a 5-year trajectory between now and 2030. In 2030, you have to comply with a number of requirements with the Department of Employment and Labor for you to receive a certificate of compliance. But importantly, one of those requirements is that you're in good standing with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. We will have that register on our website, and if your name is as a store is on that register, you've got nothing to worry about. So it's a closed loop, and we're beginning the process. We have a call to action which will be going out next week to you as retailers, and the call to action is this: we please need 10 retailers, 10 stores, 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 a maximum number of 10 people across your various stores if you have multiple stores, or whoever is currently in your store, but a maximum of 10 people per brand at this moment in time to pilot the mixologist designation. And I promise you, I guarantee it's not going to be time consuming. All it's going to do is a validation of all the work you've done with your employees in the tinting department. So we have a call to action, which will be going out next week. We're asking stores to give us a maximum of 10 names with contact details, as well as the names of the store managers, because we certainly do not want to be seen to be interfering. And we will begin the process of interacting with your mixologist tinters to move them towards a professional designation. We want that designation to be awarded and in place at the very latest by the end of April, although we're hoping by the end of March. From there, we will engage with your stores, and in an instance where there is a head office, for example, Shaves as a head office, we'll engage with you on your plans towards the beneficiation of that particular group of your employees. In other words, what training and development, formal or informal or both, that you're intending to do with those individuals, so that we can then actually simply ask you to account for the fact that they've participated, they've attended, they've done whatever exercises you're asking them to do. And so that we're actually able to say that they are participating in continuous professional development. The mixologist designation will last for 3 years, during which time they're expected each year to participate in some kind of continuous professional upskilling and development. And at the end of the 3 years, we will then re-register them for another 3 years if they've participated in continuous professional development. We're not looking to make this laborious. I do need to emphasize that. The moment we know that 60% of your tinters, even if it's just one person, but 60% of your tinters in your store have been professionally designated, the store will be issued with a SAPMA certification of excellence in terms of compliance with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. And that certificate will last for a year at a time and simply be renewed. There is no cost to that certificate. Good. The fourth point on that slide in front of you is that we will be holding suppliers of machinery and equipment, of the chemicals you use and of the tinting products you use, responsible for the continuous professional development on their products, on their machinery, on their equipment. Not only initial training, but update training and product training year on year. So we will be holding your suppliers accountable for making sure that your tinters and your mixologists are properly up to date with best practice all of the time, rather than you as a store. Where we find that suppliers do not have that kind of training and development in place, we will endeavor to work with those suppliers, or alternatively, we will come back to you and say, we've got a red flag. And we need your involvement in that engagement with your suppliers. But again, we're not looking for it to be a bureaucratic, laborious process. Ultimately, besides compliance for the store and for the group, what the mixologist designation is really about is it's about the dignity and the development of the people who work for you, and the recognition that if they've been working for you for 10 years as a paint tinter, they're a professional. They're a professional practitioner in paint tinting and mixology, and they should be recognized for that purpose. There's no increases, there's no bonuses that come along with what we're wanting to do. We're simply wanting to validate your business as a business of excellence, and that's why we're doing this work. Before I move on from the mixologist designation, any questions or issues anyone wants to raise? Rowan, are you comfortable with what's being suggested here? Nick?
Yeah, no, it's good. I think it's a good idea. Thanks, Albert.
All right. Aggie, within Warrior, are you comfortable that we want you to participate in this program for mixologists?
Sorry, my microphone is off. Yes, I'm good.
Sorry, Rowan.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Can you hear me,
Yes,
Darwin?
yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Because yesterday I was battling with this computer. Okay, thanks.
No, yesterday I was just pressing the mute button the whole time when you started speaking, Aggie. I'm
Oh, well,
joking.
that's good. That's good. At least you kept me quiet.
All right. Sorry, Rowan, I did hear you in the background, sir.
Yes, now good. I said carry on.
Okay, good. All right.
Ava, sorry, I just want
Yeah.
to confirm with the members that are present. In terms of the mixologist designation, when we send out that call to order, that there will also be a non-disclosure agreement because I think, and it's very, very, it happens regularly within the coaching sector, not specifically within retail, but with everyone in terms of staff poaching. So just to remind them that the information that they share with us will remain at SAPMA. It will not be shared with anybody else. So that information is kept private and confidential.
And it's also important to emphasize that what will appear on our website and also the registers which are given to the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman will not have any details of the names or the stores of the actual mixologists themselves, but simply to say that we have the audit trail, we have done the certification of those stores, and we're quite happy that they're centers of excellence. So no one needs to worry that from this perspective, any kind of poaching will take place. Completely correct there. And by the way, and this is the important thing, and I mentioned this yesterday in our HR forum, the professional designation certificate of your tinter will be linked to your store and to your brand, which means that if that tinter is then poached by opposition, they will lose their professional designation on condition you notify us of the fact that they're no longer employed by you. They will lose their professional designation unless there is an agreement between the poacher and the poachee stores, or unless the new store has agreed to resubmit them to the professional body under their name for professional recognition. So it is a retention policy if you want to see it like that. It's not our intention to make it a retention policy, but the way we're implementing it is it's very much store bound. We can do that for the next 3 years, and we will continue to do that hopefully beyond. But until we have formally registered this designation with SAPMA, and SAPMA say you've got to have it in the marketplace, you've got to have a critical mass of stores that are playing with you, and then we'll register the designation. Until we register the designation, we can do that. We know that once we're registered with SAQA, for this particular designation, SAQA will try and remove the linking to the store and say, because it's about dignity, it's about the fact that a person has become a professional irrespective of where they work. But from a labor relations point of view, we've checked this out. We're perfectly well covered. We can draw up any rules of the scheme we want, and it will be store and brand linked for as long as we can continue to do that. Good. Have I answered your point, Tara?
I didn't really have a point, but I was just making reference to the NDA. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, as I've said, we've got this MOU with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. Our job is to promote, for those companies that are business to consumer facing, to promote registration with the Office for the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman. It truly is not expensive. I think it's 1,000 Rand a year per store. Our MOU makes the first line of self-governance on disputes, in other words, mediation activities, the responsibility of SAPMA. So the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman will get a complaint from one of your customers. That complaint will be referred to SAPMA. SAPMA will initiate the mediation activity to look for a meeting of the minds. Only if it is not successful, and SAPMA is required to have a group of subject matter experts on paint and coatings products and the application of such on hand to be able to mediate those disputes. Only if the dispute cannot be mediated will it then be referred back to the Consumer Goods and Serviceman for neutral mediation, but never arbitration. The Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman won't arbitrate on a dispute. They'll simply issue, like the CCMA does, a certificate of non-result, unsuccessfulness, whatever you want to refer to it as. And from there, then the parties are free to take it either to, if it's under 20,000 Rand, to take it to the small claims court, or alternatively to take it into formal arbitration. So our objective is to try and make sure that we are continuously trying to bring the parties together. Our challenge, and the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman have pointed this challenge out to us. Our challenge is going to be distinguishing the retailer's responsibility for the guarantee versus the warranty. If I can just ask you, Nick, what do you do in a situation where a customer buys a tin of paint from you, and then the customer complains about the job, and you then discover that the job has got nothing to do with the quality of the paint, but everything to do with the work of the contractor? What do you currently do in that regard?
I mean, it's a very long question that you've asked. I mean, it really does depend, and we can, I mean, the biggest sort of dispute we have like that is if a person has specified a brand and they said, there's no way that that person used that brand on my house. And we just say to them, just ask him for the receipts, because if he would have bought the paint from us, use the receipts. But if there's a color dispute because of color, we go and we try and deal with it on site or at the store. So there's so many different avenues that you got to follow. And then if it is one where there is clearly a substrate issue, again, you can, as a last resort, there are those industry experts that you can call them to get a thing. But again, simple tools like moisture meters and that, you can show a person if there's moisture in the wall, and no man, paint's not a miracle.
Yeah, you can use guys like Matt Dacre.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, guys. So that is our challenge. We're never going to resolve it, but we have to have a way of managing through it.
Yeah.
So what we're doing within retail now is we've dealt with lead. So we have regulations about lead, and we are now required as retailers to bring to the forefront in the minds of the consumer consciousness about not buying product which is greater than 99 parts. In other words, lead managed and lead restricted. And then the second campaign that we haven't yet got into, but we've been asked by government to get into, is this campaign around methanol in paint and coatings product. And there is the same initiative that happened for lead that's going to now be initiated and happen for methanol. But the point of this slide is to say, and this item on the agenda is to say that we're going to be working with marketing agencies to create a national campaign around lead and methanol consciousness in consumers and in contractors. It's called responsible marketing, and it shouldn't cost us anything to run this campaign because it's in the same category as don't drink and drive, in the same category as wear protection when you're having sex. It's in that category. It's called responsible marketing. And in the marketing and communications charter, their scorecard, their triple B scorecard, if pro bono activities are conducted by advertising agencies, then in fact they earn scorecard points for doing that. And that's precisely what we want to do here. Below the line, branding and marketing of our retailers, retail paint and hardware retailers, because of the fact that it's a public consciousness program that we're in fact looking to run. So that's just to bring that to your attention. And obviously we'll be asking all of the stores to display posters and any kind of point of sale material that might be available as information material as this campaign is in fact developed. But ultimately the objective is to project the industry as it exists in terms of membership of SAPMA as professional, as excellent, and as accountable to the public at large. And finally, before I talk about SAPRA, what is...
Sorry,
Yes, Aggie, I see your
Aggie.
hands up. Yes, sir.
Hello. Are you with me, Ivan?
Yes.
Yeah, look, there is methylene, let me get the word right here.
Methanol.
Yeah, methanol, ethylene chloromethane, dichloromethane in a lot of stores around the country. I'm not saying any of our stores have got that. That's used in paint strippers.
Right, like methylated spirit.
Yeah, no, it's a paint stripper. You apply it to the paint and you want to get it to remove it. So paint remover, actually. Methylene chloride.
Right.
And now there's that's more dangerous than methanol. And some of the stores are still using that, selling it to their customers. So I thought they should raise that up with the organization, with SAPMA, and they should have a look at that and take it up with the department.
It's very, very important as input into this whole discussion around methanol regulation. So thank you for that. That's very useful. Thanks, Aggie. Okay.
Barbara, sorry, can
yes,
I
Tara?
just come in here in terms of the lead and paint regulation? Just to note that when the inspectors come out, so the regulation is obviously published on the 17th of May, and it's effective, the first deadline is the 17th of May 2025. So the inspectors might go to the place of source, which is obviously the manufacturers, but I think a lot of them are going to end up in the stores. So I think it's quite important for us to send a document out to the relevant retailers and the stores themselves to say if an inspector does come in, what steps need to be followed, what their rights are as the retailer, and what the inspector will be looking for from a lead and paint content. So I don't think, according to the regulation, it says that the inspectors will have some sort of testing equipment. I don't think that they will have the equipment that they need to be able to test that paint, and that then requires the person that's doing the inspecting to send that sample to an external laboratory or independent laboratory to further test that to confirm that there's no lead in paint. There is a lot of speculation, confusion around the testing part of the regulation. And I just wanted to let everyone know that's on the call, and if you hear anything else in the market, if you could just let people know that we are seeking a legal opinion from Adams and Adams, specifically around the testing part of the regulation. And as soon as that's available, I would think by the early next week it should be finalized and we'll be able to send that out. So if you do hear any rumors, if you can just keep them to a minimum and say that we're seeking legal opinion, and hopefully we'll get more clarity from that as well. So I just wanted to confirm that.
Can I just respond to that with two things? First of all, we'll draw up a guideline document on what your rights are, what your obligations are when an inspector knocks on your door. We assume that the inspectors we're talking about will not be health inspectors, but in fact that they will be these 20,000, and I'm going to emphasize that, these 20,000 people that are currently being employed in the Department of Employment and Labor. It's part of the government's jobs program as inspectors for the Department of Employment and Labor. And besides the employment contracts and your employment issues, they will be looking at all sorts of other weird and woolly issues, including, by the way, compliance for regulations. So if that is the case, we want you to be ready. We'll draw up a document, a guideline document on how to deal with these inspectors, the questions you can ask, what you're obligated to do, what you're not obligated to do. And we'll try and get that out to our retail members as quickly as possible. So that's the important thing. But the way things stand at the moment, and Adams and Adams will confirm this, or they might vary it. But the way things stand at the moment, it's actually quite simple. A guy knocks on your door and says, "I'm an inspector. I want to see your paint tins." They look at the paint tins. and they become suspicious of the lead in paint because it might not say less than 99 per million or something like that in terms of your labeling. The obligation to then refer that matter through, the obligation then to refer that matter through to the South African Bureau of Standards for testing is the inspectors and the departments. It's not yours. So the inspector cannot turn around to you and say, we need you to refer this to a laboratory for testing and to give us a report back. It's the inspector's obligation in terms of the way the regulations are now written. And they have to do that in terms of their relationship with an accredited laboratory, national laboratory such as SABS. So you're not obligated to, in fact, do the laboratory work. You will be obligated to have on hand or to be able to obtain from the manufacturer you've sourced from these specification sheets. What's the proper term for those sheets, Tara?
They're safety data sheets. So those will all be available on the manufacturer's websites, so that retailers have access to that. But just to confirm, we have picked up in the latest regulation that was published that it says that it has to be an independent laboratory. It does not say anything about an accredited laboratory. So that's also something that we're getting the legal opinion from Adams and Adams. And also the other thing is, if they come into your store anytime between the 17th of May 2025 and the 17th of May 2026, they cannot confiscate or impound the paint because it hasn't got the correct labeling on from the manufacturer's point of view, because according to the regulation, the labeling requirements are only, they have a 2-year gap to be able to change those labels. So they cannot, between this year and next year, mention anything about the labeling requirements. Only from middle of next year onwards can they then check the labeling and make sure that it's compliant with the regulation.
Excellent. Good. So moving on then. Just to give you, as retailers, an understanding of what's going on in the world of skills development, a couple of companies will already have used these instruments called learnerships. Now, up until now, the historical learnerships have been 120 credit, 1,200 notional hours over a 12-month period, traditional learnership. Those historical, what are referred to as legacy learnerships, have been mostly phased out, and those that haven't yet been phased out will be phased out this June, July. The learnership is being converted because academics and Department of Education have grabbed hold of what historically has been your instrument to get people into your work environment and to skill them. But now it's been hijacked by academics, and the academics have converted those 1-year learnerships into 2-year learnerships. Instead of 120 credits, they're 240 credits over a 2-year period. Now, we are advising our members to consider not initially investing time or energy in learnerships, even if it means sacrificing a couple of points in terms of your triple BE scorecard, until learnerships which are fit for purpose, that you're happy with, have been properly registered with the Qualification Council for Trade and Occupation. And there's an entire ecosystem that's in a total mess around the Qualification Council for Trade and Occupation. So we're suggesting to you that in your recruitment strategies, while also looking to satisfy your triple BE scorecards, instead of learnerships in the short term, you focus rather on using YES. The beauty about using YES is the people you bring into a 12-month fixed term contract of employment, which is exactly the same you would have done for learnerships. But the people you bring in will already have a qualification. You'll be able to specify a qualification for those people. So, for example, if you want someone in sales, you want a qualification in sales. If you want someone in management, you want a qualification in management already. And so what we're saying to you is rather focus on using YES, because it has two benefits. The first is, in using YES, you get people who are able to hit the ground and make a contribution in your business rather than a learner who is only going to be there for a maximum of 3 days a week and then has to go for training. That's the first benefit. But the more important benefit is if you are a level 4 or even a level 5 triple BE measured entity, you have the opportunity to jump 2 triple BE levels the moment you meet your yes target. So if you employ 20 people, your yes target is going to be 1. And if you have 2 people rather than 1 person as a yes candidate, you immediately are able to jump 2 triple BE levels from where you were previously verified. It's the most amazing instrument. I'm encouraging you to run it. We will run a yes clarification masterclass for your human resource practitioners or those responsible for recruiting in your business. But it really is a massive advantage for you, and I'm encouraging you to use it. Within SAPMA, our objective is to roll out over the next 2 years managed yes programs for our members. And the reason we're saying that is we're finding that many of the small businesses just don't have the resources to do this internally. So we will figure out a way of managing a group of yes candidates, either in the retail supervision category or the retail management category or the retail sales specialist level 1 or the retail sales specialist advanced categories. Those are the 4 that we're looking at for retail over the course of the next 2 years being rolled out. But if you use this opportunity, so you get a call to action, please indicate whether you're comfortable taking in a yes intern. Like, for example, SAPMA have done with Warren and Sean. Please indicate that you're happy taking in 1 or more yes interns in any of the following categories, and we will then include them in the SAPMA internship program on the back of yes. The benefit of yes, there is a prescribed minimum rate of pay. It is well below industry averages, and that's not the reason I'm suggesting you do this. The benefit of bringing people in at this level is you will give opportunity to someone who has a qualification but remains unemployed to hit the ground running in your business over a 12-month period, and you will have the benefit of a reduced financial responsibility to the person. You will be able to offset ETI about 1,500 Rand a month from PAYE, and you will immediately, on signing the contract with the individual, be eligible for re-verification of your current measured entity triple BE status by 1 level or 2 level, depending on the number of people you bring in. So it really is a massifier. We think it's a game changer for how you comply with triple BE on the one hand, but how you also upskill people being brought into the business, induct them into the business, and get usage out of what they're able to contribute in the business. So, for example, a retail supervisor would be, over the 12-month period, led by how we manage the program within SAPMA through a number of, let's call them projects for your workplace, where the result of the work they're doing in your workplace for you will in fact be moderated externally for you as well. So you know that the quality of what they're producing for you is essentially intellectual property. We're hoping that that becomes the norm with which our members engage with the yes opportunities. Any questions or comments about that? Okay, moving on. What I want to do now is I just want to very quickly take you into the world of SAPRA. We've had a number of engagements with some of the large groups about the necessity for this. You will know that 2 years ago we floated the idea of a South African Retail Association for Paint and Hardware. We think it's going to be a major influence on policy and parity trading, but it all stems from an email received a couple of months ago, which has really given new life to this project by one of the largest stores groupings in the country. And I'm just going to read 5 of the comments. He says, our industry is coming under increasing pressure from informal and unregulated traders in the hardware, paint, building material sector. Our stores are having to compete against unregistered traders selling non-SABS, cheap and poor quality imported products. And with the consumers under financial pressure, it's starting to affect our trade. Most, if not all, of these stores are run by Chinese, Pakistani, or other foreign nationals and are unregistered businesses not complying with tax law, the Companies Act, and other regulations. Similar to what is currently taking place with spaza shops, etc., there might be a call to start regulating these traders in our industry as well. I'm not sure if there is a need for our reputable competitors, but we would certainly get behind an initiative to better control our industry. If this is something you would want to investigate and get involved with, we would be very happy to have a conversation at an upcoming event. So that's what initiated us revisiting this notion of the South African Retail Paint and Hardware Association. And so the proposal we made in 2023 is that we think that this association has the potential to become the largest industry-based group of companies trading in the retail space in South Africa. Not we think, we know. This dominance underscores the critical need for unified standards, ensuring the sector's sustainability, compliance, and alignment with national economic goals. You already do that. Through SAPMA, we're already accountable for doing that. The establishment of this association aims to unify stakeholders, ensuring that retail stores operate within a framework of compliance and accountability. So the objectives of this association would be to certify compliance, to develop a certification system for retail stores adhering to South African laws, regulations, and industry standards, to certify stores that comply with these requirements, offering consumers a reliable benchmark of trust and safety. We've already said we have to do that in terms of the Consumer Goods and Service Ombudsman and the Act, but that's one of the objectives of SAPRA. Second, to address non-compliance. Identify and take action against non-compliant retail stores that engage in unfair trade practices or compromise consumer safety. Maintain a register of non-compliant stores and ensure appropriate legal action when necessary. To promote industry collaboration. Establish an MOU with SAPMA to guarantee extended warranties on compliant paint and coating products, promoting consumer trust in certified stores. Facilitate collaboration between retailers and manufacturers, enhancing product quality, ensuring adherence to industry standards. We already do that. Representation and advocacy. Represent the interests of the paint and hardware sector through SAPMA at Business Unity South Africa and at NEDLAC, the National Economic Development and Labour Council, which is where all policy, all legislation gets debated before it goes to the president for signature. To advocate for policies and practices that promote fairness, compliance, and growth in our local retail sector. Now, we are very much under threat because of the African Free Trade Agreement with the notion of retail. Let me just indicate to you that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition have a fund that they have been using to fund new retail businesses into operation, where they source the supply. They manage the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition, manage the supply of product into those businesses that they're funding to be established through the African Free Trade Agreement, from non-compliant countries throughout Africa, but also from their relationship with banned countries, such as, for example, Iran and Russia and other countries that are sanctioned internationally and have to find routes into countries. And the African Free Trade Agreement has been created to be that route for BRICS countries in particular. It is a big problem. At least some of our retailers are telling us it's a big problem. And then in terms of the objectives, consumer awareness. This is who we are. We're a center of excellence because we are part of a scheme. We're part of an association. We're accountable. And sustainability of operations, ensuring the effective administration of SAPRA's affairs, including regular meetings, engagements, and operational oversight, allocating resources for legal fees where they're necessary to challenge non-compliance and to address issues which ensure accountability and fair competition. Key deliverables: our certification framework, our MOU with SAPMA, our public marketing campaigns, industry representation, and our legal provisions. As far as the funding of the South African Retail Paint and Hardware Association, well, an annual fee from retailers to fund marketing campaigns and legal provisions is all that is going to be required. Operational expenses of SAPRA will be covered by existing retail contributions to SAPMA. You guys are members of SAPMA, you pay a retail contribution to SAPMA, and because of that, it will fund the South African Retail Paint and Hardware Association's operational activities. Over time, we will simply ask members, the companies and the groups that are members of SAPRA, to contribute to two funds. A marketing fund, where in fact we're looking, because of thought leadership and below the line opportunities I've already discussed with you earlier on in this discussion, where that marketing fund will be limited in terms of need, and the legal fund. And we're not looking to fund legal court cases, but to initiate action with existing Department of Justice, Department of Policing structures. So very, very limited legal exposure or legal financial exposure in that regard. We will also fund the activities of SAPRA on an ongoing basis through partnerships and sponsorships with manufacturers, with industry stakeholders. And I've already spoken about the responsible marketing campaigns in lead and methanol that we spoke about a little earlier. We're looking to reduce the above-the-line marketing expenses and sometimes not have to spend money on marketing at all in that particular regard. The benefits. Well, the benefits of the South African Retail Paint and Hardware Association for retailers is a fair and competitive marketplace, enhanced consumer trust, and access for extended product guarantees. For consumers, assurance of safety, quality, and compliance when purchasing from certified stores. For manufacturers, strengthened relationships with compliant retailers and a platform to promote high quality products. And for the industry, and this is important, a unified voice advocating for fair trade practices, for compliance, and for sustainable growth. We want SAPRA and you guys to be sitting in Business Unity South Africa activities and at NEDLAC representing the retail sector, the retail paint and hardware sector, because you will be the largest influencer of policy and legislation in the country on retail. And you will be able to protect your businesses and your sector against cheap, unregulated imports, against businesses which are started by individuals where those businesses are not compliant, they're not registered, they're not accountable. And the only way to do that is through sound national policy and legislation. That's why we need to get you to the table on those discussions and keep you there. So the South African Retail Paint and Hardware Association within SAPMA would work the same way that the Surface Coating Employer Association works in its relationship with the National Bargaining Council. We would have it as an association under the umbrella of SAPMA, specifically taking care of the interests of retailers who are members of SAPMA. Now, we've had a couple of presentations. We've got a number of the groups wanting us to move forward with this. We'd like you guys to move along with us. There is no initial financial obligation whatsoever. It is completely about being self-regulated by you rather than by any external forces. But it's really about the identity of retail paint and hardware in South Africa, whereas at the moment it doesn't have that identity. Any questions? Any thoughts on that particular presentation? Nick, what are your thoughts, sir?
Oh, there we go. So I had to just unmute myself. Yeah, just we live in a challenging business environment, and we've got communists giving us extra rules. Aren't we lucky? But yeah, I think it's an essential thing. I really do. I've spoken about it in the past, and I've been on board with this for a while. So yeah, it's a necessary thing to have. I really believe so.
Okay, thank you for that. Aggie, from a warrior perspective, what are your thoughts, sir?
I think it's a good thing. But if we can get all these guys on the same page and take us forward from there. It's no good having 5 members on it, and we're not really representing the whole retail paint industry. So we've got to get the other guys on board as
So
well.
I'll tell you who's around the table already. Around the table already is Build Co, Build It, Micah, um, Builders. Those are already the groups that we've got around the table on this issue. And I know I've left a couple out, Tara, but just to tell you that the majority of formally recognized retail brands are already around the table with us.
No, that's good. Is Chamberlain's also involved here?
Chamberlain's not yet. Tara, I speak open to correction, but not yet.
That's correct. So at the moment, we've got DIY, Marker, Warrior, Universal, Build It, Paint Club, Shaves, and Prominent at this stage.
And then
That's
Builders
And
as well.
Builders, sorry.
Yeah.
And Builders as well, sorry, yes.
And we will build. The campaign will take on a life of its own. The identity will take on a life of its own. And we've got no doubt that eventually we'll have all of the groups on board. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm just asking you to watch the space. If there's a call to action, please respond to the call to action, whatever it is
Sure.
in relation to SAPRA. Thank you for that. So just finally then, the labor relations update. Well, the National Bargaining Council for the Chemical Industries wage agreement, which is a 2-year agreement, their conditions of employment relate to labor relations, but they don't relate to retailers. Retailers fall outside of the ambit of the National Bargaining Council for the Chemical Industry, although there is an FMCG chamber. But we've specifically asked for clarification with the Bargaining Council, and they say no, retailers fall outside of that chamber. They mean something else when they talk about FMCG. So that's great. Minimum wage in that particular industry is 10,500 Rand a month. So we're hoping to keep you out for as long as possible, hopefully, for forever. Sorry, Tara, I see your hand.
I'd just like to confirm, though, that it does impact everybody that's on this call, though, because they're manufacturers and have retail stores. So it will impact all of them in terms of their manufacturing plants.
So very much. If you are a manufacturer and you are not currently a member of the Surface Coating Employer Association, so you're not considered to be a party to the Bargaining Council, when the agreement is extended, now they've already extended the glass chamber of the Bargaining Council to cover non-parties. They're moving now onto industrial chemical, which is where we find ourselves. When industrial chemical is extended by the Bargaining Council, and you are a manufacturer retailer, the manufacturing side of your business very much will be covered by the existing sectoral agreement. So if you are a manufacturer, I would urge you just to maybe have a separate dialogue with myself and Tara about what you can do now to make sure that you're not caught with your pants down when there is an extension of the agreement. And invariably, there will be an extension of the agreement. We've been very, very good, I think, in moderating that whatever the agreement implication is when it's extended for our businesses that have never been party to the Bargaining Council, you'll be able to phase in any requirement over a 3-year period if you're an SME, and a whole lot of exemption opportunities, application opportunities as well. We've forced that into the Bargaining Council rules and policies, but it still means you need to be mindful of the reality that whether it's 1 year or 3 years, the Bargaining Council agreement will be extended and the manufacturing side of your business will be automatically included in the scope of the Bargaining Council when that's done. Current issues. Well, you will have seen the retail employment equity targets, which were published on, I think, the 15th of January by the minister. Now, those employment equity targets for retail, and he was quite specific to have done it for retail as well. So it's done for manufacturing, it's done for retail, but you need to look at those targets. And we want to engage on the retail targets with whoever is responsible for your employment equity planning activity, your workplace skills planning activity, and your triple BE activities for your workplace. So we will be organizing an engagement session specifically on the retail employment equity targets and a separate one on the manufacturing employment equity targets for you to get your head around. Remember, those equity targets are they pretty steep, but they are a 5-year set of targets. So you only have to have met those targets by 2030, but every year you have to be making incremental progress towards those targets. If you're not managing to meet some of those employment equity targets, you have to have a reason and a strategy for not meeting them, and then what you're going to do to try and overcome that problem. I do want to tell you something about about all the employment equity targets. Alongside with employment equity targets, the minister published the 2023 Economically Active Population Profile of South Africa. Now, this is where we look at the demographic composition of South Africa, where it is 80% male and female African. It is 7% male and female white. It is 4.5%, let's say 6% male and female colored. And it is 1.6%, maximum of 2% male and female Indian. That's the current economically active population profile of South Africa. What the employment equity statistics have revealed with the Department of Labor is that while the employment of white people into junior, middle, senior, and executive management levels have come down from roughly about 85% in 2001 to 60% in 2023. So they've come down by about 20%. So while the male and female employment of people into those 4 levels, junior, middle, senior, and executive management of your businesses, have come down by 20%, the problem is on the African side, where in fact you're supposed to have 50% minimum of black male and female people in junior, middle, senior, and executive management levels in your business, but you have as a maximum 30% on average. And in the Indian community, where you're supposed to have 1.6% of your junior, middle, senior, and executive managers as Indian male and females, 1.6%, the number at the moment is 13%. And on the colored side, where you're supposed to have 4.5% male and female, the number is currently 10%. So what the minister said, not me, the minister, what the minister said is we are massively oversubscribed with Indian and colored people in management levels, junior, middle, senior, executive management levels in businesses. And therefore there should be a freezing and a moratorium on the employment of Indian and colored people into those management positions until such time as your employment equity profile of your business fits the economically active population profile of the country. But by 2030, it has to have fitted. So white people, Indian and colored people cannot be employed to junior, middle, senior, and executive management levels any longer. But those people in those positions can't be retrenched, can't be dismissed, but they cannot be promoted beyond their current levels. And new white people, Indian and colored people cannot be employed into those positions. It has to be where you prioritize employment into those positions for African males and females. Now, not every company is going to be able to or willing to comply with that. But if you're not complying, you have to have documented an audit trail of board decisions and engagement activities in your transformation forum, your employment equity, workplace skill, and triple BE forum in your business, showing why you've chosen to continue to bring white, Indian, and male colored people into that junior, middle, senior, and executive management levels. So remember, I'm not the one saying this. I'm the messenger here, so please don't shoot the messenger. But this is what the Minister of Employment and Labor has said in making available the employment equity targets and the economically active population profile of 2023. So you need to know that. and we will talk through it with you as often as you need to talk through it with you to make it practically workable for you. But by 2030, for your business to continue trading, you will need a compliance certificate from the Department of Labor. And besides everything else I've spoken about today, this is one of those issues. You have to have an EAP profile, which in one way or another reflects the EAP profile of the country. So that's quite important. And as the last point, any observations, thoughts, comments in that regard, colleagues? I hope I haven't shocked you. I hope I haven't depressed you, because there, there are ways to manage all of these issues I've raised today. You do not have to be shocked or depressed by any of these issues. We are on top of things. We're getting in front of things, but we need you to come along with us when there are calls to action to make sure we get you in front of things. All right. Any final comments? Tara, from your side?
I'd just like to get your opinion. The document that you sent me yesterday regarding a legal opinion on rebates, do you think that that's necessary to share with all the retail members, just so that they've got that legal opinion on hand?
It's
Or just for
very
information
important.
purposes?
I think it's very, very important. It's a guideline opinion. So I think it's important that you do share it with all of our retail members, but importantly, that you share it with groups, because we do not want the Competition Commission to accuse you of collusion, and in your rebate structure with manufacturers, or your rebate structure with your stores to head office, we do not want you to be accused of collusion. And the Competition Commission is looking for companies to accuse of collusive practices. So it's an important document to read. And if you want, we can actually workshop it at a later stage, Tara, because I do think it's important consideration.
Perfect.
Aggie, I
Thank
see
you.
your
I see
hand up,
you
sir.
have.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something yesterday when we had the meeting, that the Department of Labor is now employing 20,000 inspectors. I don't have a problem with that, but I have a problem with the way they actually communicate with each other. When this UIF TERS thing came about, we had a firm of auditors from Victoria that had been appointed by them to actually do audits on this. So they chose us as one of their specimens, and they started sending us letters. I must have replied to 4 different people with the same information. Eventually, I said to them, I'll come to your office because it's near where I live. And I put everything on a memory stick. I went there, I handed it in. 3 months later, another firm of auditors sends me exactly the same details and asks me to give them the same information. I said, I refuse to do that. You can contact the people that I've already contacted. Here are their names and so on, and their email addresses. I refuse to do it. You know, surely they must communicate with each other. They must have targets of who they've got to go and inspect and so on, instead of going and bothering the same people over and over again.
Yeah. So let me explain what's going on. And no one is able to get out of this net. What's going on with the Department of Labor is the Department of Labor, it's their piggy bank, if I can put it that way. It's the piggy bank of the officials in the Department of Labor, of the Minister of Labor, and it's the piggy bank of the ANC. So what they are doing is, the COVID TERS was a trap. They were happy to pay the money out with no regulations whatsoever at the time. And the regulations came after they paid the money out, by the way. And then what they did is they found a whole lot of black auditing and accounting firms. And the agreement with the black auditing and accounting firms is, if they manage to force employers into paying back the TERS money and the penalties, they would get commission, the firms would get commission, and the officials in the Department of Labor and the Minister of Labor and the ANC would get kickbacks. Percentage of the commission would be paid back. And that's how this cycle works. So you will find that there is a list of all the companies that receive TERS available to all of the auditing firms, and they can all have as many goes as they want at companies in the hope of forcing you into making concessions that you needn't make. Now, we've already said we want to keep a register of all of our members who are being approached by these accounting firms, because we intend to go to the accounting regulator on this matter, because it is absolutely a shambles in terms of how those auditing firms are managing and accounting firms are managing this process. And we believe it is a money-making racket by the Department of Labor for personal benefit of officials in the Department of Labor, for the Minister of Labor to know that they've automatically got this bonus coming in on monies collected from employers, and in fact for the ANC to make sure they have operational funding available through mechanisms like this. So it is absolutely corrupt the way it's being run at the moment. They make you feel like absolute dogs because you kept your company going and you actually paid your employees first and then tried to get something back from TERS to compensate in terms of the regulations they released at the time. So you mustn't accept it. You must challenge it all of the time. And you'll find that if you kick up enough noise, they'll actually just go away. But most of the time, it's just on a repeat automated email process that they've got going. So,
you know what was the scary thing about it? The first company, they gave us 5 days in which to answer. So they sent it on Thursday and they expect you to answer by the next Wednesday.
right.
And when I challenged that in the telephone call, they said to me, that is the law. You got to do it. Otherwise, you can land up in jail. And
No, there's no law. There's no law in this regard.
Is there no law in this regard?
No, there's no law on debt collecting on TERS. There is no law on debt collecting, which has substantive components of days and return dates, etc., etc. There's no law. Bottom line is, Department of Labor are entitled to investigate whether what they've paid out to employers was used for TERS purposes, yes, but there's no law for harassment. And I think that's the important thing. And in fact, I think it would, Tara, I think it's becoming more and more important. We're getting more and more of our companies that are complaining of the same thing. I think we need to compile a register and ask companies to indicate whether they've been contacted by which accounting and auditing firms. And then we need to take that to SAPMA or to the auditing board and ask them to investigate on our behalf as a sector.
Thank you, Ivan.
All right, Aggie. Thanks, man.
No more questions.
Good. All right. So, Nick, any parting thoughts or comments from your side, sir?
No, thanks. I have a very useful meeting. So thanks to you and Tara for organizing, and look forward to the next one. And just comforting to know that if we get some of these calls, we know who to call.
Yeah. I do need to say, just sorry, Aggie, just one last thing. It's not those 20,000 inspectors who have any responsibility over TERS whatsoever. So they can't ask you for any documents. They can't put any kind of pressure on you in that regard. And you need to resist any pressure they may want to put on you in that regard. It is only an auditing firm that is formally commissioned by the Department of Labor who can do that for you.
But thanks for that, because I'm sure the other guys are sharing this information with them. It will put them on the right track if they get those letters.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. Rowan, anything from your side, sir?
Great.
Sorry, I'm all good. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Guys, thank you very much. We will make this recording available to everybody, and yeah, we'll just keep moving forward. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.